Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to today's next women's coaching session. We're going to wait a couple of moments while everybody joins the session today because we've had an outstanding turnout. We have hundreds of women joining our session today, and we just want to give everybody a moment to come into our Zoom meeting room. So today, we are talking with Terry Yoffe, our executive coach, on effective communication. Today's focus specifically is on advocating and negotiating for yourself. Next slide, please. We're going to be using some Zoom best practices. All of your mics are muted, but please ask questions and share your thoughts. In fact, I'm going to be asking a few questions along the way that specifically we're going to be looking for you to chat in with us and send us in your thoughts on the particular topics and questions. When I ask you that, you can type to Abby Auerbach using the chat button. That's me. And I promise we won't identify you by name or by person or by station or by anything else. Or you can also raise your hand by clicking participants and selecting the raise hand function. And at that time, we will call on you and unmute your mic. We're also, toward the end, we're going to conduct a one-question poll. And I'll let you know when that comes up, and you can quickly just click on that and give us your response. If you have any technical difficulties, please send a chat message to our TVB host, and today that's Victoria. The session will be recorded and available to all of the registrants within 2 business days, and we have an extra bonus prize for you too that we'll be sending along with it. We'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get going. Next slide, please. So I'm Abby Auerbach. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Communications Officer here at TVB. And joining me today is our fabulous Terry Yoffe, our executive coach, who is back by popular demand. As this is the 4th in our series of executive coaching sessions, many of you have heard lots of wisdom from Terry, and we're delighted to have so many of you back for multiple sessions. I'd also like to thank Wide Orbit. Wide Orbit makes all of this possible by underwriting our Next Women's program. So 3 cheers for Wide Orbit for making this possible. And one last note, you see here that we provided Terry's contact information, both her email and her company website. Terry has very generously granted a complimentary free session to the women that are attending today's session. So you don't need to write down her contact information now. We'll show you again at the end. But thank you, Terry, for making yourself available to the TVB Next Women. So let's get started. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see so many smiling faces out there. Here's a wave. So, Terry, as a setup for today's conversation, tell us a little bit about what it is about advocating and negotiating effectively that's particularly a challenge for women.
Thanks, Abby, and thank you so much for having me here. And this is a topic that is so near and dear to my heart because I do work with a lot of clients on effective communication. So right off the bat, advocating and negotiating for yourself is about a win-win. It's about winning, period. Winning, getting your desired outcome, being able to resolve conflicts, and also if there's alternatives. And, you know, I think a lot of people here are in sales. I spent many years in advertising sales. And while we are great at negotiating and advocating for our clients, for whatever that is, we are not so great at advocating and negotiating for ourselves. And I've got 2 great quotes that I'd like to start off with. The first one is, I don't know who. If you don't go after what you want, you'll never get it. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. If you don't step forward, you're always in the same place. First quote. Second one is by Catalina Rojas, and she's the host of the Social Change Career podcast. You need to do your homework. A negotiation is the time for you to show others how you value yourself and advocate for yourself. The key word here is value. So let's go to the challenges that us women have for everyone. Women actually came to the party later in in the years other than men. It used to be a man's world. And back then they were not asked to negotiate or advocate or even speak up. And even today, with women in top roles, and I have clients that I have worked with, they still have a problem speaking up because they have a fear and rejection and fear of job loss, fear of looking like they're overstepping their boundaries. They're aggressive rather than assertive. And oh, that pushy broad, still used today. Too much of an opinion. And also women feel a need, they've got to get it down pat. They've got to be perfect in what they say. And that is not necessary. And women also, when they don't speak up, they give up their power and empowerment of who they are. And also what I have found is when women don't speak up, they really make themselves smaller and they marginalize who they are. And they do have a problem in advocating and negotiating. So that's the very short of the challenges women have. Also, they try to manage others' expectations rather than focusing on themselves. What's the person going to say? How is it going to come across? Rather than just being authentic. So, ladies, effective communication, which is the foundation for advocating and negotiating, is all about influencing and persuading others in business. Really, nothing more. It's about getting your thoughts, your messages, your ideas across so that you can advocate and negotiate in ways that work for you, and becoming also aware of the impact of what comes out of our mouths. Because most people think that opening our mouths and talking, just letting it come out, is communicating without giving much thought to what we want to say and how we want to say it. So Paul J. Meyer, who is a motivational speaker, says, communication, it's the human connection, is the key to personal and career success. And today, more than ever, human communication is tantamount to your success. I'm going to call it the trifecta of what's going on in business. We've had this whole disruptive business landscape for a while, and now we've also have something called a VUCA landscape adding to the disruption, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now throw in the whole pandemic, and if you're in sales, how do you do your job? How do you connect with clients? It's got to be the human connection, and we do it now mostly by Zoom or some other form of technology. And even more so, it's imperative that we get our message across quickly, to the point, and everyone must understand exactly what's been said. Now we've got also, with the whole pandemic, the whole stress, anxiety, fear of what's going on, right? We're all working longer hours. We're maybe wearing more hats. We're worried about being fired, being furloughed, about the company going out of business, about the loss of control of what's happening. And a lot of messaging can be misunderstood, which can lead to reaction before one responds and understands the message. So let's make this up. You're sitting at your desk and you're doing your work, and your manager comes over and says to you, clear out your desk. You immediately stop and think, oh my God, I'm being fired. Well, the rest of the message could be, we're moving you to a new office, or we've got a new desk for you. So that's a lack of communication, because when somebody says, move your desk, you're going to move, well, you have no idea what's coming next. Or alternatively, a lot of managers are getting on Zoom calls with people and letting them go. So can you imagine if 5 people are asked to be on a Zoom call with your manager, and you're expecting, oh my God, what I know, I'm going to get fired. Instead, it might be you with the 5 that are staying. So, it's uncertain times, and we're losing sight of big pictures here. because there's really no big picture for anyone to look at. And what I like to say is we're all dancing on shifting sands because it's very uncertain. So effective communication, how are you expressing, excuse me, how are you expressing yourself, especially on a Zoom call? Now it's how are you looking? How are you showing up? How are you acting? How are you sitting? And the environment, are you in your office that's got disarray and boxes? Or are you in a clear environment where it looks clean and pristine? And addressing on the call, are you making eye contact? Or sometimes we'll look away or we'll look up or we'll look around and not make eye contact. Second is paying attention to what's being said, what I call is fierce listening. And most of us do not listen wholeheartedly. So if you're negotiating or if you're advocating or if something is being said to you and you want to get a point across, well, listen for the answer with both ears, because 100% of people never listen. They listen with partial hearing. They're either thinking, how can I be clever? How can I be smart? What kind of an answer can I give that I look like I'm a genius? Or if you're at home, you're thinking, how do I manage the kids? How do I do this? So you're not listening to what's going on and the answer. I had a client where this happened and her boss said, okay, you got it. She didn't hear it. She kept going on and trying to sell more. When the deal was done, she just didn't hear. So also another key point is if you have something you want to discuss, a very important issue in advocating and negotiating with your manager, with your client, read the environment. If the other party is having a quote unquote bad hair day, you do not want to talk to them about what has to get done. They will not hear it. You have to wait until there's an energy that two people can respond to the message. And also what we do is we multitask. Everybody does it. We think it's great. I'm sure on this call, people are multitasking. They're doing other things. So you may only hear part of my message, but multitasking takes you away from fierce listening and from getting a buy-in for the conversation, because you'll miss part of the communication. And it's also then following up with a powerful question so that everyone understands exactly what took place in that interaction. And the last thing is always acknowledge others, always inspire your team. And I had a client that was great at what she did. She never took the time to acknowledge her team and wondered why things weren't getting done. So that's really a little bit about effective communication. We do have a tip sheet at the end, if you missed any of this, of how we set this up and what the challenges are for women in advocating and negotiating.
Terry, that's amazing. And so much, I'm thinking to myself, tick, tick, guilty, guilty, guilty. And thank goodness to you for creating that tip sheet. That's the special bonus I was telling you about, that Terry's articulated all of her best advice, and we're going to review that toward the end of the conversation, and we'll share it with you as a PDF. But let's take the thinking that Terry just imparted to us and turn it the other way. And let's hear a little bit from some of the women on the call today and what's going on with them. So Vic, would you put up this question for everybody? Great. So think about this, ladies. More than ever, we feel vulnerable and uncertain. We sure do. So how does that impact the way you ask for what you need? So think about it. How is it impacting how you ask for what you need? And please chat in your thoughts to me. Send it to Abby Auerbach. I will not say who's sending in the thoughts, and we'll have Terry respond to them and provide some insights and some guidance on all of your ideas. In the meantime, while you're doing that, Terry, thinking about this question and knowing how many clients you have in so many different types of business roles, can you share with us a case study or two of how
Yeah,
people are responding and reacting to a question like this?
I'm going to actually start with the shorter one because I spent a lot of time on the first part. So here's the thing. And if you're a master communicator and you can read the energy, it really doesn't matter what's going on. Feeling vulnerable, yes. Feeling uncertain, yes. And letting that be there. And figuring out how to work with what's in front of you. So here's an example. Have a client that, wants to work from home even after her company goes back to work in their office. And she feels for a while she'd like to stay working in her office, working from home. There's a lot of benefits for her. She doesn't want to go back because they're going to open up soon and she's not prepared. So again, it's figuring out and also showing, because it's all about what's in it for me. And that's what the boss or the company wants to know. Well, what's in it for me for you to stay at home? And showing them that her work would not suffer, that in these months, this is what she's done. She's actually come to work earlier because her office is in her home. She's worked more hours and she would continue to do that. So it's about painting a picture. And I tell clients this, how can you paint a picture which draws your person you're speaking to into that picture so that they see the benefits for you to continue working from home and the advantages to the company, not having to travel, the longer hours, getting done without distractions. And another thing was, if others feel the same way, you can get a buy-in from them. And as a group, you can present your case in a very beneficial way and what's in it for your boss, for you to stay at home and work. So that's the shorter one.
And Terry, you know what? Let's stop there because we have gotten an outstanding number of responses. So thank you, ladies. This is fantastic. So I see a theme. So I'm going to share this response with you. So remember, the question again was, more than ever, we're feeling vulnerable and uncertain. How does that impact the way you ask for what you need? And here's one response that I think ties a lot of this together. I tend to back down or not ask for what I need because I don't want to seem like a bother or incapable of doing my job during this trying time. I don't want to seem like the weakest link.
Yeah. So whoever wrote that, that's a brilliant question. And what I would tell my client, that's what I said in the very beginning. You're trying to manage other people's expectations by not speaking up. Well, if I do this, I look like a weak link. That's other people's thoughts. And instead of managing your own, well, if I speak up, this is what I have to offer. Also, it's a bit of a trap because this is a preconceived notion or an assumption that you're making. Nobody has told you that this is true. This is something you've made up in your head as a way of keeping you from actually speaking up. So it's something that gets in your way. It's a block. And if you're willing to take that block right now, move it to the side, and even though you feel vulnerable and uncertain, again, am I going to be a bother? That's just talk. And speak up. Try it. You may be nervous, you may be scared, but so what? That's the only thing that's going to move you through this, not sitting back and coming up with this talk. That's virtually not really true. It's only true in your head.
And that's great advice. And you'll see, ladies, on the tip sheet that Terry offers some very specific advice about how to speak up, how to be concise, and how to be clear, and the ways to speak up effectively. Let me go on to another comment, a slightly different one. This one says, I have surprisingly gotten much bolder and assertive because I'm feeling like life is much too short and precious to stay silent now. How do you respond to that, Terry?
I think that's fabulous. Whoever you are, pat yourself on the back, because here's someone that decided, given the landscape, given where we are, I don't want to say it, but, F the world. I'm going to speak up. What have I got to lose? We're already in this crisis. So it should come from a place of, okay, life is short, and we're seeing that. We're watching the body count. We're seeing what's going on. Life is short. Step into your power and go for it. What's the worst that can happen? No one is going to fire you. That's for sure. No one is going to. They may say, wow, Jane, I'm impressed, right? So that's the flip side. We all think, oh, what if? But what about the flip side? Wow. And speaking up during these times is a win in your box, that people will remember what you've done.
Terry, here's another thought. One more, and then we're going to go on to our next question. But I love this one too. Because I want to help the team, I give people way too much of my time for individual AE training, creating customized trainings, and one-on-one coaching, where I'm putting myself last and saying yes to too many people that do not deserve my time. Trying to be a good manager. I also find it harder to manage my time because I'm home versus traveling. So, what's the effective communication there? I think, to me, it sounds like creating boundaries.
That's right. Number one is creating boundaries for yourself. And also, are you there pleasing them, or are you doing it for another reason? Is it going to make you look good? Because, oh, look at me, I get a gold star. I'm here trying to help my team. And there's nothing wrong in this time with wanting to help your team. And is this something your team wants? Is there a buy-in? And what can they do themselves? So you're almost enabling them in a way instead of empowering them to step up and help create their own ways of teamwork and working together. So yes, it's boundaries. It's look, maybe feeling, oh, look, I look good because look what I'm doing for them. But what you're doing is enabling them, and you're depleting yourself.
And here's one more I'd like you to address. And we may go over a little bit on time today, right. So stick with us, ladies. I've been asking for what I need for quite some time, and it has consistently held me back in my career because I am almost always asking someone who confuses my needs in the workplace with emotions. Now is no different. I don't remember a time I felt in control of my career. So that sounds like a woman communicating to a man.
It very well could be. And perhaps, and again, I don't know, and please don't be offended, you may not be effectively communicating. There's lots of ways to communicate. It's meeting somebody where they are, right? We have a tendency, what I call chunk up or chunk down, which is if somebody is an A personality, all they want are the facts, quick to the point. If they're an A person and you're giving them the entire story, their eyes are glazing over. They're not interested. You've lost them. So it's knowing who you are talking to. Who are these people? And it's not a one size fits all. It's mirroring who these people are with you and how you interact with them. And if you've been advocating for your career and it's falling on deaf ears, possibility, you're not getting your point across in a way that works, you're maybe being emotional, or alternatively, you may be in the wrong place.
Fair questions, very fair questions.
Excellent.
Okay, ladies, I'm going to ask you another question. Let's open up the chat again. And if Vic, if you would please put up the next question. And our question is, think about a difficult situation where you advocated for yourself successfully or unsuccessfully. And what did you learn? What did you learn about advocating? What did you learn about communication? What did you learn about yourself? And if you would chat those responses into us, I'm going to ask Terry to please share a case study while people are thinking and chatting in with us on this question.
This is a great one, actually, and that's a great question. I love it. So I have a client. She's a lawyer. She's petite, she's pretty, and she has a low voice. And she's a lawyer with a big financial institution, very male dominated, and she wasn't really taken seriously for a while. What we had to really work on, even though she was petite, is to raise her voice, worked on her advocating and negotiating for herself for what she wanted. She had to get way out of her comfort zone, way out, to be heard for what she wanted and respected. And she had a hard time being concise. She used to tell a long story in her interaction. And think about the desired outcomes. I tell clients, if you're going in to a communication talk, what's your desired outcome? What do you want to get out of that meeting? What do you want to get? That's how your desired outcome is formed. And you proceed to get to that place. So we worked hard to push through all of her insecurities, all of her fears about, oh my God, what am I going to be? And she did it. And she stood her ground, which prepared her, because a new financial institution with male dominated, she was interviewed for a GC, general counsel. She wanted this and didn't think she would get it, so it would take her 5 more years. She went up against men. We worked on how she was going to negotiate, how she was going to advocate. She came to them with her package. She looked them in the face. She spoke with determination. And guess what? She got that job. She got the job. And she had more difficulties in her first year because her team resented her. They were men. The people in her office resented her because she got it and she was a woman. And she had a very, very tough first year. But she put into effect everything she learned, and she has exceeded her expectations, and she's really well thought of. So that is a perfect example of advocating for yourself in this type of environments.
Sure, and despite the odds.
Right, it was despite the odds, definitely.
And in our business, there are very few women in the broadcast television business.
Yeah.
The women in the next program are all women that are aspiring for senior executive roles and senior management roles. And we are sitting with men all the time. One piece of advice that I received along the way, and I use it all the time, is that, you sit at a table with men, they take up a lot of room. They're big. So you need to have room. You have to, I put my coffee on the right side. I put my pad on the left side. I stake out my space and so that I have a commanding space at the table.
Right, exactly.
Too. Otherwise you get lost.
Exactly. You have to, right.
There are some great responses that came in, so I want to share that with you. I'm going to put these two together. So one woman tells us, no doesn't hurt as bad as you think it will. And another woman says, I learned it is important to use the appropriate tone or it will not come across properly. And I think those two things go together. What do you think, Terry?
Exactly. Women are afraid of being rejected. That's the business world. You're either in it or you're not. And you're either playing the game or you're not. And women tend to be and show more vulnerability. Well, if it's no, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's no, big deal. It's not the end of the world. And not to speak up for fear of rejection, which is what I said right away, is an excuse. And we give ourselves excuses. The other thing we do, and I didn't say this, but I'm going to throw this out because it seems to be true, women self-sabotage themselves. They self-sabotage themselves by lacking effective communication or not speaking up.
So to that point, let me share this one. After a company shakeup, I spoke to my boss about changing my role and taking more responsibility. I was surprised how responsive he was and how happy he seemed that I finally asked.
Ah, there you go. Ask and you might receive. It's from that first quote. If you never ask, you always get no.
So ladies, there are so many more wonderful, wonderful comments in here. If I didn't get to asking yours, please send me a chat and let me know if it's okay if I send your comment to Terry with your email address, and she might get a chance to respond to you. A little Dear Abby advice. Is that okay with you, Terry?
Perfect. Love it.
Great. So Terry, let's go on to the tip sheet because I want to make sure you get a chance to give everybody a high-level overview of that excellent advice. And Vic, if you could put that up for us. Terry, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to I've already said a lot of this. I'll just pinpoint, express yourself. Are you being direct? Are you being clear? Are you being non-ambiguous? And avoid the rambling and I got to get all the details out because what if they don't hear me? They got to hear me again. So also preparing for what you want to say, receiving the information, paying attention, fierce listening. What is being said? After you say that, getting a kind of a feel for the environment, also body language. 50% of communication is your body language. And if you're sitting there like this or any other way than open, people pick up on body language and it might not be congruent with what you are saying. And also don't interrupt. Again, this next one is avoid misinterpretations and distractions. You distract when you multitask. Listen with both ears to what's being done. Don't try to be clever. Listen so you have a good response and be supportive. The situation, body language, your tone, the content, and also especially I underline being on Zoom calls, assessing the environment. When's the right time to have a conversation? If it's a bad hair day, don't have a conversation. It will go nowhere fast. And it's also about how are you selling? Are you headlining it? This is it? Or are you rambling on like a brook, which nobody wants because the message gets lost in translation. And we talked about Zoom calls. How are you showing up? How are you talking? How are you looking? What does your space look like? Are you making eye contact? Are you acknowledging? And I'd like to end with the quote again, communication, the human connection is the key to personal and career success. So I'll leave you with one question. Are you using communication successfully and effectively to influence and persuade others, or are you just talking? Thank you very much.
Well, that question really sums it up. That takes everything, it puts it right there for all of us to ponder. And I think the combination of that question with this tip sheet and this conversation that we had, which will be available video on demand to everybody next week, so you can go back and listen to it, share it with other women as well. Next Women is open to all women that are aspiring for career advancement in our industry, again, courtesy of Wide Orbit. So Terry, I can't thank you enough.
You're very welcome.
We have one last question for our audience. If you could pull up the poll, please, Vic. And you can see behind the poll, and it'll go away in a moment, that Terry's contact information is there for the complimentary session. But please let us know, do you feel better equipped to communicate effectively and advocate for yourself after today's session? This information is really important to us because it helps us to curate additional content for Next Women. Terrific. So thank you, Terry.
Oh, thank you so much. This is obviously a passion of mine, and I love talking about it because it's very important for women to learn.
Well, you are spectacular, and
thank you.
Our Next Women love to hear from you.
Great.
So Next Women who are out there, please mark your calendars for June 17th. That's our Next Women's next session. And that will be an executive interview with Graham Media's CEO, Emily Barr. The wonderful and fabulous Emily Barr will be with us. So have a wonderful weekend. Terry, thank you again
You're
so
very
much.
welcome.
Ladies, if you are interested in having Terry respond to a question or your chat message that she didn't get to, if you're interested, I will share your email address with her. Just chat me and let me know. And everyone, be well, be safe, take care of yourselves. You know, they say put your own mask on first before you go and help other people on a plane. It goes for now too. So take care of yourself and have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.